Tommy,
All right.
this has been this has been a process. I'm glad to see you though, my friend. It's been a
It's good
long
to see you.
time.
It's been a long time for
Yep.
sure.
So I
But
am
be
speaking
good.
with the one and only Tom Gross, who, Tom, if I even attempted to sing all your praises, um, it's your list of accolades are and accomplishments is longer than both my arms together. But I want to say that probably there is no single repository at in the Waterville area that knows more about the history of Waterville and than you. And I started out this process thinking I was going to do a relatively simple set of podcasts about the birth of freestyle skiing. But the more I got into it, the more I realized that there were a lot of stories to be told, and I was going to try and tell a number of them over the process. So, Tom, you have been all over the world officiating various sports competitions and participating as a broadcaster and doing all kinds of interesting things relative not only to skiing but to tennis, which is um, one of the areas where you established a long time reputation as a tennis instructor and starting one of the finest tennis centers in the country at Waterville Valley. Um, what was it that brought you to Waterville in the first place?
I grew up, Wayne, in Manchester, New Hampshire, and an athletic family. So I started playing tennis when I was 3 and started skiing when I was 3. And my both my mom and dad were athletes, and they loved to ski. They loved to play tennis. So they'd load my 2 sisters and myself into the car, and we'd go off skiing. And I think I started at Twin Toes in may have been in Hooksett, New Hampshire. And I weighed like nothing. And I remember my sister was behind me, and uh near the top of the toe, the rope went straight down into the snow, and it pulled me right down. There was no way I was strong enough to hold it. So my sister's screaming at me to get out of the way, to get off, and she ran into me. And this is before we knew about letting the rope slide through your hands. And so that was like one of my first skiing experiences. I just loved it. And then we skied at Sunapee and Gunstock, Ragged Mountain, Pat's Peak. We were all over the place. And in 1966, Waterville Valley opened, and Bobby Kennedy skied in Waterville Valley. And I'm a teenager, and Bobby Kennedy was the first politician that ever really piqued my interest. And
Yeah.
John Glenn skied there, and all the stars skied in Waterville. And so that was like the place. So when we came here in 1966, I was in heaven skiing in Waterville Valley, hoping to get a glimpse of Bobby Kennedy.
Yeah,
And so
Bobby Kennedy used to wear that silly headband. He didn't wear a hat oftentimes. He'd wear a
wore a
headband because he
headband.
wanted to
Yeah,
let his freak flag fly
that's
with his
right,
hair.
Mr. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Right, one of my favorite songs.
Yeah. So,
And
yeah,
yeah,
I remember those days. In fact, at some point I was in a snowball fight with Peter Dunfey and Bobby Kennedy Jr., and a bunch of the other Kennedy kids and the Dunphy kids.
that's right. Yeah, I was just talking to Tish Dunfey, Jerry's daughter.
Yep.
I went to school with Debbie Dunphy, Walter's daughter. She lived the next street over. She lived
Yeah.
over on Elm Street. I was on North Bay. And so we were friends. We were both on the Manchester swim team, and we were good friends there. And the Dunphys had a very large presence here in Waterville Valley.
Right.
You know, Bud Dunphy
Yep.
and Jerry and Jack, and so they were all up here. And I came into Waterville in 1975. I was a tennis professional. I was hired by Rod Laver and the Rod Laver Tennis Holidays.
Wow.
And right out of college, I had worked at the Mount Washington Hotel in 1974 for a couple of weeks with the Tennis Holidays during the Volvo International. And Rod Laver hired me full time then. And I went back to school, finished up college for a year, and then New England College. And then I joined Rod Laver. And the Mount Washington Hotel had gone bankrupt after the summer of 74. And they were looking for a new home. And Tommy Corcoran, the master developer of Waterville Valley, two-time Olympian, he had heard about it, and Rod came down to Waterville, and they struck a deal. And Roger and Tish Hamlin, they own the Snowy Owl Inn, and they said, we'll front the money to build, 11 more courts as long as the Labor Emerson Tennis Holidays stay at the Snowy Owl Inn. We'll be the official inn of the holidays. And so that happened. And so I came here in the summer of 75 to Waterville. And
So, now, I know you were that New England College has named you to their Hall of Fame, right? Their Athletes Hall of Fame, which is a pretty cool thing.
yeah, I had a 77-2 record. We had 3 undefeated seasons. It was
Wow.
great. It's sad that they don't have tennis anymore. They had to drop it,
Huh.
which is like the cheapest sport ever. You just need courts. And
Yeah, right.
the guys, everybody on the team, they have their rackets, you need tennis ball, but it's a very, very inexpensive sport. So
Huh.
that was disappointing because we went to the Nationals, I think 3 years in a row,
Yeah.
which was fun.
So when you started skiing at Waterville, it was the the Mount Tecumseh had opened. It wasn't just the Snows Mountain
No,
complex.
it had opened in the winter of 66, 67.
Okay.
And I came up then. It was brand new. And the really cool thing about, Tom Corcoran being a 2-time Olympian, a 4-time U.S. national champion, is that in 1969, being the magical man he was able to secure the 1969 World Cup finals in Waterville.
Huh.
So the World Cup finals were here like 2 years after he opened up Waterville Valley,
Wow.
which was incredible. And they started the first freestyle program in 1969. And in 1971, they had the first freestyle event ever, the exhibition of freestyle skiing, and which made Waterville Valley the birthplace of freestyle skiing. And this coming weekend, I guess it's January 26, 27, next weekend, we have our first World Cup race here. Not race, but competition since the 1991 World Cup Alpine Finals.
Huh.
So it's great to have the World Cup back. We've had the national championships here. This will be in March, will be our 4th year out of the last 6 years hosting the freestyle national championships. And I remember announcing them back in the 90s or the late 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Late 80s, I think. I announced the championships, and it was moguls and aerials.
Okay. So that was, I've interviewed Wayne Wong.
The legend.
Yep. And
coming in.
yeah, so that was fun. And George Askevold.
Floyd Wilkie.
Yeah, I haven't gotten through to Floyd yet.
He's
but,
elusive. I don't think you're gonna get through to him.
Yeah, you could be right. I've tried
he's under the radar. And George Askevold.
Yeah.
Billy Fallon. Yeah, there are a few of those boys around. Bertie Britton. I think she was, this is funny. Bertie Britton competed in the 1971 exhibition of freestyle skiing, and she was also a judge. So she said she skied horribly, So I said, well, you obviously, as a judge, didn't give yourself high rankings. And then she got back on the up on the a booth there, and Jean-Claude Keely was a judge also, and she did not win, but it's funny that she competed and was a judge.
Yeah, yeah.
That was Tom's wife, Bertie
Right.
Bertie
Yeah,
Corcoran at the
yeah,
time,
yeah, yeah.
which is pretty cool.
I remember her. I remember them both well. And
Oh
uh,
yeah,
Tom was quite a presence.
he was the best. And so when I was hired by Labor Emerson, and Waterville Valley was our summer resort. I'd finish up Waterville, then I'd go to Pinehurst, North Carolina for a month, then Hilton Head Island at Palmetto Dunes, home for Christmas, then out to California, Texas, Hilton Head, back to Waterville. So did that for 5 years. And then the camp started to fade a little, and I got kind of itchy to do other things. So I moved to Waterville Valley in 1980, and I ran the tennis program and started to get involved in the skier. I worked for Waterville Company, and
Yeah.
Tom Corcoran in like early 1981, he asked me to announce the ski school race. And back then, you could take your kids out of school, and there'd be 300 people in the ski weeks every week. So I announced the ski race every Thursday, and started having a passion for that. And then Tom brought in the Governor's Ski Invitational, I think in the mid 80s. And then the thing just kind of snowballed. And when a cable television came into town in 1980, 81, I had this crazy thought of, let's do a TV station. And so within like a month, we're on the air, Channel 6. And we were the first ski area in America that had live television.
Yeah.
And so we did a morning, we started out just doing a Saturday night show. And then it was, I guess, so popular that they bought us real equipment, editing decks, the whole bit. And we started doing a morning and evening show. And then Tom Corcoran was doing television ads, and we're shipping them down to Boston. And BZ, Channel 4, they were up here, and they saw me on doing our show and hired me to be the New England ski reporter.
Uh-huh.
Channel 4 in Boston.
Wow.
And so we're doing a ski report every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, shooting it in the morning, editing it, and driving it to Boston to be on the air by 5:30. And it was a 20-week contract. And so we did that for years. And then WMUR in Manchester picked it up. We did one for them too. And so the thing just kind of, in the 80s, it just exploded. You know, from my end personally, was doing the TV every day and the ski reports 4 days a week. And then
Right.
then the ski racing started to come up, and I started doing the celebrity events, and Bernie Willett from American Airlines sponsored the Governor's Ski Invitational and asked me to do his event for cystic fibrosis in Crested Butte, Colorado. And I'll be going back the end of the month. It's now in Beaver Creek for my 37th year doing that as the race announcer, MC, and auctioneer. So everything just, was snowballed. And there were certain people, like Michael Bolton was at the American Airlines event, and he asked me to do his. Andre Agassi was at Michael's, and he had me do his. And Lance Armstrong was at Andre's and had me do his. And Ethel Kennedy. So it just got to, so I was doing like maybe 18 a year.
Yeah.
And it was golf, it was tennis, it was softball, it was anything.
Huh.
And then it morphed into the military. So I do an awful lot for the military now. The Blue Angels Foundation, the Special Operation Forces in California, Brothers in Arms, and was in Washington, the Navy SEALs. And so, having a very big history of military in my family tree, it means a lot to me to to raise money, and there are auctions at all these things, and so I
Right.
do the auctions and raise money for our veterans and
Mm.
SEAL families whose husbands or wives have been killed in action, and so that means a lot to me doing that.
And I hear, as I recall, reading about you, uh, you have raised millions of dollars for charity. I mean,
Yeah,
tens,
probably I've helped
tens of,
over 100 million
yeah, wow,
combined with everything over my career from
yeah,
81 till now, and it's still going strong. So
ah,
it's a nice feeling,
yeah.
really nice feeling to do
So,
that. I mean,
well,
that's
let me ask you about a few people that we're going to feature during this series. One of them is J.D. Nelson. Do you remember
J.D.
J.D.?
Nelson. Yep. JD was the attorney for the freestyle skiers right at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
because this thing took off like in an instant. Once this championship happened in Waterville Valley, I think within 2 weeks they duplicated it out west. And Wayne Wong and a lot of these athletes, like, what do we do? Contracts, this, that. I mean,
Right.
prize money. And I believe that J.D. Nelson and Jack Sanders
Yep, that's right.
were attorneys for the original freestylers, the hot doggers.
Yeah,
And
that's it.
JD was, I believe, the first African American to purchase in Waterville Valley a home. And he was a great skier and very instrumental. And he was a spoke in the wheel of the birth of freestyle skiing.
Right. And you were there when Paul Fozy was the director of the ski program, weren't you?
I was here in the summer because I was with Labor Emerson Tennis.
Yeah.
And I skied here when he was the director recreationally, but I wasn't living in Waterville when Paul was here. He
Yeah.
had moved, he had left Waterville and moved out west, I believe, to Heavenly, maybe.
Yep. Yep.
And that's where he had a tragic accident in
Right.
a
Right.
helicopter.
Boy, we thought that it was pretty cool that he was the ski school director at Waterville Valley.
Oh yeah, and um, I kind of learned to fine tune my technique at Ragged with Hans Jaeger,
Oh.
who was from Switzerland, from Parpan, Switzerland,
Uh-huh.
and he taught me and fine tuned my style, and he ended up becoming a coach for the Swiss national team. And he still lives in Parpan, and so
Huh.
the Swiss were kind of, pretty. They were around New England. They
Yeah.
were here. Stein Erickson originally was up, I believe, at Stowe
Yep. Yep.
before he moved out to ended up at Deer Valley,
Huh.
and which
Yeah.
was a great. I don't know if you ever met Stein Erickson.
No.
He's the best. I did the Deer Valley Celebrity Ski Fest out there, and the greatest cheeseburger I ever had in my life was at the Stein Erickson Lodge, and it was called the Steinburger. Now, the greatest thing ever was the day that I had a Steinburger in the Stein Erickson Lodge with a stein of beer with Stein.
With Stein.
Yeah. And so that we hit it off, and that kind of became a tradition because I was there for like 15, 18 years.
Huh.
And we would always, just the two of us, go and do that every year before the event.
Nice.
Pretty special to hang
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
Really,
I
the
mean,
first.
he was, as I look back on it, before hot dogging began, Stein Erickson was doing flips on skis, as I recall.
Yes, he was. He was the first superstar of skiing ever back in the 50s. He was the
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
first superstar of the sport,
Right. Right.
Stein Erickson. And
And
he was, what a guy.
yeah. Well, back then I was, in the '60s, I was on the Waterville Valley Black and Blue Trail Smashers ski team. I was a pretty young kid, but um, you're talking about JD. There was also Frank Dubois,
That's right.
who was apparently the first black ski instructor in the country.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah.
Well, I'm gonna make a note of that, Wayne. You gave me that information. That is awesome.
Yeah,
That is great, Frank. I didn't know that. That's big time right
yeah,
there.
that it really is. It really is. And
Wow. In
I
America?
that's what he thinks. And he
Okay.
said there was another guy who was training at the time, but he said he thought that he uh, got his certification before him. But anyway,
That's you. That's significant.
yes, it is.
That's worthy of. I mean, I've never heard that,
Yeah,
and being in Waterville in the ski business my whole life, and wow, that's good. I never heard that.
yeah. And but Waterville Valley, I mean, when the rest of the country was in turmoil over racial issues, you had the first African American ski instructor. You had the guy who came and took all those hot doggers under his wing, along with Jack
JD.
Sanders and
Yeah.
Bernie
Weichsel.
Weichel. Yeah.
Weichsel,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, and just there were some really terrific people who helped diversify the folks at Waterville.
I grew up in Manchester, and Gary Jones was Black American, and we were kids, and it was nothing to me.
Right.
He was just Gary, and we played baseball and tennis, and he was one of our pack. And it's funny that there was nothing. It was no, you're different. It was just a guy. It was an American. It was just a kid,
Yep.
which was very interesting. And maybe it goes back to you. I mean, we didn't talk about it at all at home. I mean, it was just he was a
Right.
guy. He
They
was
were
our
just
buddy.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
your
So we
buddy.
had no preconceived notions of anything.
Right.
And
Right.
there was a Cuban. He was only there for a short period of time, but a Cuban boy was next door, and we had Gary. We had the Cuban boy for a short period of time, but it was nothing. And
Yeah.
doing the Ethel Kennedy's event for so many years, became very close with Rayford Johnson and Gail Sayers and Bill Russell.
Wow.
And, we just got along so well. And I think that these guys, and it was probably because of my upbringing or just the way I was as a kid, they just, I think, saw some genuineness, not just no BS, and that's why they were kind of Bill Russell drawn to me. Always says, "Okay, I want to have dinner, just the two of us."
Nice.
And he signed nothing for anybody.
Right. That's
He
right.
signed
Did you
a
ever get
shirt
his? Did you get
ever.
his?
He signed a shirt for me.
No kidding.
Yeah, and I'm interviewing him. Hang on one second. You're gonna love this. All right, this is one of my. You're gonna love this. So I'm interviewing him. We're doing a little chat, right?
Yeah.
And he's wearing that hat, and I'm saying, Bill, that's a great hat, because it was in a shamrock with a number 6 on it.
Yeah.
And he took it right off his head and put it on mine, and he said, "It's yours."
Oh, how nice.
And I'm like, that is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
John Havlicek would say to me, Bill, he signs nothing. He said, I played with him for like 12 years, and I'd go up and say, "It's my kid's birthday. Can you sign this?" And he'd say, "No, Hondo, I don't sign anything." So Bill is signing shirts to me. He's giving me his hat. It was like,
Wow. That's
but
pretty special.
it is. And we talked, and I was very interested in how he was treated in Boston. And it was so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not right. And,
Yeah.
it's a culture thing. And I remember talking to Father Michael Kennedy. He was from Ireland. And I just finished reading Trinity by Leon Uris, and he was I was intrigued by what was going on over there with the Protestants, the Catholics, and I said, what's it going to take to have peace? And this is in the early 90s, maybe. And he said it begins at home. The mothers and the fathers have to not teach the kids to hate the Protestants or hate the Catholics.
That's right. Yeah.
It begins there. And I'm like, whoa, that's, I believe anything can be done, but that's a chore,
Well, that that
Like,
those two, the sort of the connection between the racial issues and the issues in Northern Ireland, that brings us to the Dunphy family, because the
mm,
Dunphy family was critical in both race relations in the country. Jerry Dunphy ran the Parker House for many years, and the Parker
sure did.
House was the first hotel in Boston where an African American person could come in the front door and could stay there, and and
As it should be.
yeah, absolutely.
That's
And
that.
and
Yeah,
then they were a critical component. The Dunphy family was a critical component in uh, bringing about peace in Northern Ireland as well.
extremely so. Yeah, and Bud was an ambassador. I don't think he was an ambassador, but he was at the United Nations for a year or two.
Right. Oh, I loved Bud Dunphy.
Oh, now Bud Dunfey, he was the best, and he had a home in Waterville.
Yep.
And the only time you went there is when he invited you. And I was fortunate to be invited a nice amount of time up in his turret and talking about world issues. And always wanted me to come to the New England Circle. And I was always so busy doing stuff.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of regrets in life, but that was one of them, not doing that. But you can only do so many things in life, Wayne, and
Yeah.
you prioritize things, and before you know it, time just flies by.
Right. Right. And
But
and I mean, in addition to all the things that we've talked about now, you've also been involved in starting and running businesses in Waterville.
yeah,
So
that was well, I was in when I was hired by Rod Laver, I was a tennis pro. And 2 years later, I think I'm 24, 20, he made me national director of tennis. So I had all these pros underneath me that I was in charge of. And I was in charge of hiring the pros and for our resorts. And so at a young age, I, learned responsibility, and I learned kind of the difference between, you had to make that shift from partying with your buddies to being the guy in charge. And so at a young age, I took that break. Those guys would, party like 20-year-olds in the 70s. And I had to take on a more responsible role, which I did. And so when I came to Waterville Valley, um, we built and opened up Legends in the town square. The town square was built, and Tom Corcoran
yep.
said, I can't pay you what you're worth, but I can give you space for a nightclub. And so we opened up. I had an investor, a partner, two partners, and we built Legends. And we opened up on February 3rd, 1989. And it went 32 years. I had bought out my partners through that time, and COVID shut us down after 32 years. but we had opened up the Waterville, old Waterville Pizza Company in 1995. 1985, yeah, 1995. And so we gutted that out and we turned it kind of into a mini Legends. And so that was rolling. And also in 1995, I had a small group of people. We bought the sports center and turned it into the White Mountain Athletic Club.
Yeah.
So we're approaching 30 years there.
Wow.
And the 18 clay court tennis center became part of the athletic club when we bought that. So I'm still coaching and directing that in the summer months. I have great general managers at Legends and Pizza with Mike O'Brien, Rainey Schwartz, my general manager at the athletic club. So it's really cool having businesses here, which is a different model from Tom Corcoran. You know, Tom Corcoran owned like everything. And then in 1995, he had to went bankrupt.
Yeah.
Then he had to sell off some assets. And
Right.
so I was fortunate to pick up the athletic club and the tennis center. But his formula, because the ski area is an interesting dynamic. You know, the areas out west have tremendous real estate.
Yes.
That can help offset bad winter or whatever.
Right.
Here, it's dependent pretty much on good skiing and getting the skiers up. You know, the ski area owns the conference center and the town square. They have the Silver Fox Inn and the North Star. So they have revenue streams.
Right.
You know, skiing is a tough business
Yes, it is.
in New England and very, very difficult. And you have to have thick skin and you can't let the weather bother you. And you're in it because you love it.
Yeah.
And so I kind of had the mixture, you know, I had the athletic club and we had the ski area and the tennis. And so whether it was great skiing or bad weather, everything was working, you know,
And
people.
how do you mix in? I mean, what's your role now in terms of Waterville?
In terms of Waterville?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so I'm a owner of the ski area. But when we first took it over in 2010, Chris Sununu was CEO.
Yeah.
Freeze was president of mountain operations. I was president of valley operations.
Okay.
So I was in charge of everything on the floor of the valley.
Gotcha.
Conference center, town square, build that up, get tenants in, so
Yeah.
I did all that. And then in 2013, you know, I parted ways, which was fine. You know, Chris stayed on as CEO, and I just did what I've always done,
Yeah.
which had worked out fine for me because, you know, I'm busy. You know, I have
Yeah.
my business here, and it's very important for me to, you know, go do my fundraising all over the place,
Right.
and you know, that's not slowing down at all. If anything, I get more events. So, and I love being out on the tennis courts in the summer and being with the people. And Shangri-La, Wayne, the best setting in the world, and we were able to make Waterville Valley through Tennis Resorts Online. It's been one of the top 25 tennis resorts in the world for the last 12, 15 years.
Yeah.
We've been ranked as high as number 4 for best setting in the world, number 2 in the world for best value for the dollar, because we have the Freedom Pass. I'm president of the Waterville Valley Resort Association. And so we kind of oversee the Freedom Pass and all the summer marketing.
Yeah.
I'm president of that association. I had been the chairman of the ZBA for 30 years. And when I became president of Valley Ops for the ski area, I had to recuse myself because I had to resign actually, because every issue that came up, I was now in a butter. I abutted everything, anything I abutted, whether it was the tennis center, the athletic club,
Right.
our land at town square. It was just like, so I said, I gotta step down from this because I'm always recusing myself.
Yeah.
So I passed the baton out on that, and then we were all, Wayne, a lot of us were volunteer firefighters.
Yeah, I read that.
I did that too for 15, 18 years. I was a volunteer firefighter. We lost a bunch of buildings. We never lost a life. And I'll tell you, I got stories there. My God. I mean, we really, we didn't, I didn't necessarily know how to get the water out of the engine. But I went into, you have time for one story?
Sure.
All right. So, I'm coaching tennis. It's the early 80s, whatever. And we get toned out for a fire down in Ashland, mutual aid.
Yep.
I get down to the station a little late, but there's a sign on the door and it says, Tom, take the cruiser, code 1. And I am like, yeah, all the trucks, they're all gone. It's all left the barn. And I am sitting there that I'm going to take the cruiser down to Ashland. And I figure code 1, all right, lights and sirens, boom. So I get on 49 and I'm in the cruiser. I got the lights going, the siren. I'm 20 something years old, 28 and whatever. And so I'm going down Route 49 and cars are pulling over and they think I'm pulling them over for speeding, and it's great. So I get on to Interstate 93 and going down 93. And again, there's no feeling of power of being a civilian driving a car, a police car with the lights on the siren on an interstate. So I'm like, I don't know if this will ever happen again. And I can't end this right now. So I go by exit 24, the Ashland exit, and I drive all the way down to Tilton, down to exit 20. And then I start thinking, whoa, man, you better turn around, because if a statey pulls you over and says, where you going? They're going to see Waterville Valley on the car. I'm going to say, I'm going to a fire in Ashland. As I'm heading down toward Manchester. So I do the little U-ey where you aren't supposed to. Well, I can now because I got the siren and I got the lights going, and now I'm bombing up northbound on 93. Cars pulling over slow. So I got to pull into Ashland. I go down. I turn off the lights and siren, and they take down the barricade, and I pull in. And my chief comes running up to me saying, where's Lieutenant Smith? And I'm like, uh-oh. Tom Smith.
Oh yeah, Tom Smith. Yeah.
The sign was for Tom Smith, but just Tom, take the cruiser, right? So
you weren't even the right Tom.
I know, I'm the wrong Tom. But he didn't say Lieutenant Smith. He said, Tom, take the cruiser. I'm like, all right. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Tom Smith is up there wondering where the cruiser is. All right, so I pull in and I say, I'm walking. I say, hey, Chief, what's code 1 mean? He says, no lights, no siren. And I say, yeah, that's what I thought it meant. All right. So we finish. And he says, go roll some hose. So I'm pulling hose for 2 hours. And at the end, I say, hey, Chief, you want me to take the cruiser back up? And he says, no, we're all set. We're all set. So I never drove it again, but I totally maxed out that moment. Oh, boy.
Well, that we got to end it right there, Tom Gross, because that was a story for the ages right there.
Oh,
thank you very much for talking with me. Really,
you got it, Wayne. Anytime, buddy. We just hitting the tip of the iceberg.
all right. All right.
Bud.
You're on.
Thank you, Wayne.
Take care.
Bye, buddy.